It's a podcast.
Oh, good evening, the fixer. So I just wanna welcome you to OTM Enhancement podcast. So without wasting time, I'll just let you introduce yourself to the listeners.
Um, okay, I don't know. Whoever's listening, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, uh, whatever time you would be listening to this. I'm Durell Butler. I'm a biokineticist, fitness coach. Previously worked at Morocco Swallows and then Samba in Tanzania and then now Raja Club Athletic in Morocco.
Oh, thank you. What a easy and quick introduction. So I'm just gonna ask you a funny question. Like, how many ACL injuries have you fixed in your career?
It's a bit difficult to count. Um, Probably maybe 10 or more. Yeah, maybe.
10.
Yeah, my career is not that long. I
Yeah.
graduated uh, end of 2017, so just under 10 years, and it's almost like I seen one ACL every year.
Wow. So yeah, today we're just gonna have a very awesome conversation about your career and about your expertise. So, but my first question is gonna be like, with I know you are an injury like you are injury prevention expert. I can say maybe you're good with reducing injuries. So you see now you've been in the football calendar, especially with your history from the CAF Confederation Cup last season. So how are you dealing with to reduce injuries in that tight schedule that you guys were facing?
One big thing. So myself, including the technical team, Coach Fadlo obviously understands, or let me say, the technical team obviously understands the importance of gym in football. But I think what people miss the most is the importance of load management, individually managing uh, each player's load. And I think that's where fitness coaches make their money. Because when we were at Samba, we were playing like a game every 3 days. So it would be discussing with the coaches which players to rotate. Obviously, sometimes it's difficult when it's a big game. Although for Samba, every game is a big game. Um, but sometimes it's just about managing load, like even in the gym, managing load, um, playing minutes, training. Sometimes training is just short and intense, obviously favoring recovery and freshness over fitness.
All right. So, but what was the biggest challenge? Because Hans just said that you were playing every 3 days.
The biggest challenge was making sure players are fresh so that they don't get injured during the match. But what helped also is that our squad was fairly young. So obviously, younger players tend to recover quicker than your older ones, and I think fitness also has a lot to to do with how we dealt with the congestion of fixtures and not getting many muscular injuries. So, because when you fit, you tend to recover quicker from high intensity, whether it's matches or conditioning days. You tend to recover quicker than someone that is not fit. So that I think played a part, a major part in us having very little muscular injuries.
So I just wanna maybe I want us to maybe even dive a bit deep in this topic because even I think even the logistics because you guys are traveling to Algeria, to Botswana, to Tunisia. So how was the schedule affecting maybe the technical team or the players psychologically?
Obviously, traveling, especially like to your North African countries, it can be fatiguing and it can be tiring. You're on your feet, you're standing up, you're on a flight, your legs are always bent, so your hip flexors are tight. So sometimes we would do like a short type of recovery session, including rondos, mobility, those type of stuff, because most of the tactical work would have already been done in Tanzania. Um, so it depends also because if we go to Tunisia, for example, we'll go with a plan preparing from maybe a match day -4. So match day -4 would be almost like a restart, and then match day -3 would be like a little bit of tactical conditioning, and then -2 and -1 is just short and intense, but without giving away too much tactical information, especially in away games.
So let's say maybe you just arrived from the flight, you just get to your hotel. Or what's the first step? What's the first step maybe to get rid of jet lag?
The first thing is sleep. I'm a big fan of sleep as the best recovery. So if we're landing like early hours of the morning, there's a high chance that we'll probably train later at night, like 6 p.m. Let's say we land like maybe 4 a.m. Then maybe we'll do like a mobility session. We'll have obviously breakfast or lunch because they'd have had food on the flight. We'd have lunch and then we let them sleep again, and then maybe like a mobility in between before the training session starts, like maybe an hour, 2 hours before. But the main thing is to get them to catch up with sleep, like maybe at least getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and sometimes in between lunch and breakfast there's like 4 hours for them to take power naps.
So let's say maybe you're playing on a Sunday. So how do you guys arrange the logistics? Let's say maybe you're playing away on a Sunday. So how do you how the configuration of the microcycle that is approaching to your flight?
Okay, that would also sometimes depend on the club and the coach and when flights are available. Also, but if it's like far, like a Botswana flight isn't long. But if we're going like Tunisia, Egypt, Morocco, probably we fly on a match day -5, because match day -4 would be used as recovery, also to get sleep, because when you're flying up north, it's usually two flights, connecting flights, maybe flight to Dubai and then Egypt, or flight to Qatar and then Morocco. So maybe we leave on a match day -5, and then match day -4, we'd use like for players to recover, catch up with sleep. We'll work on mobility, and then we'll start the week slowly. So that's the logistics, but it depends also whether there's flights available and what time the flights are available.
Yeah, because I'm saying this because I think even the logistics are part of periodization.
Yeah, no, it is. Sometimes even the challenge is getting ice baths, especially in away matches. So what we would do is like buy like a baby pool, or sometimes the hotel would have bins, and then we just get ice in whatever country we're in, and then allow players to ice bath, because when fixtures are congested, ice bath becomes one of the primary tools for recovery, with that including sleep and nutrition.
So, do you believe that this schedule of playing every 2 days and every 3 days is a factor for causing injury?
Yeah, yeah, I do think so. Obviously, because of the physiology side of things, like to fully recover from high intensity, like high speed runs and sprinting, and it takes about 72 hours to fully recover from a lot of high intensity distance and sprinting. So sometimes players will go in not 100% fresh, but like 85. But it all boils down to how you periodize them before these games, like how the periodization looked before, leading up to these games. Because if players are used to playing every 3 days, it's not so difficult for them to adjust to schedules like that. And then it all becomes about managing players individually. Like I know obviously from our style of play, that our high-speed run distance is high for our fullbacks, our 10s, and our 9s because of how we play. So what I would do is I would take each and every player's total distance, high-speed run, sprint distance, um, and then I'd mark it out like this player's on red, this one's on orange, this one's on green. And the coach should receive that information. Obviously, players that are green are more fresher than players that are orange and red. And then leading up to the game, obviously, when sessions are short and intense, um, players tend to recover more. Like small-sided games, you'd cover less high-intensity distance than larger-sided games like 11v11, 8v8. So but the coach also, from his experience, and he has a good understanding of sports science. He sort of understands that, so it almost just becomes a conversation and a confirmation about how we adjust our training session.
So you mentioned a good point. You spoke about adaptations, so that the players adapt to play every 2 games and 3 games. So I just want you to can you just maybe dive a little bit there when you say like the players have to, if the players are adapted to play every 2 games and every 3 games, they recover quick, or maybe they are used to the load.
Yeah, obviously adaptation comes from being put under a certain amount of stress over periods of time, and your body tends to adjust to load. That's how you achieve fitness also. So um, if players aren't used to playing 2, 3 every 2 to 3 days, maybe for them it would be tough in the start. But the more you're exposed to playing games every 2 to 3 days, the more your body starts adapting to the demands of playing every 2 to 3 days. Obviously, not neglecting the fact that sleep becomes very important, hydration becomes very important, but your body tends to get used to being put through high intensity matches every 2 to 3 days. But if someone is playing like every 5 6 days, in the start it would take longer for them to adapt. But obviously, to get the adaptation, you have to put players through cycles like that. But you have to do it carefully.
Yeah, so I ask that question because many people they don't understand, because we know maybe as sports science graduates we understand the principle of adaptations, because many people they don't understand that principle. That's why I asked you that question.
No problem.
So now I heard you speaking about small-sided games and large-sided games. So for you, like small-sided games, do they stimulate the right loads? I mean, like in when you arrange your training sessions in small-sided games, what will you be looking for?
So now, since I've been working in football for 3 years, the way I view football conditioning, football fitness is not the same way I viewed it when I was still doing sports science. Because when a coach is looking at small-sided games, you're looking at the amount of actions. So obviously, when the dimensions are smaller and there's more players, there's more football actions. So that's how you judge intensity. But from a sports science perspective, you judge intensity by meters per minute. But small-sided games obviously help players play through tighter spaces. Granted that they've been doing it often, because again, you only get adaptation by being exposed to the same stimulus over time. And I'm a big fan of small-sided games also, number one, because it improves player agility. I know people are a big fan of these ladders and all those stuff, but that's not really true agility, because agility, by definition, is actually making a decision in a space of time to whatever you see in front of it. It's almost like a reaction. So a good way to train agility is your smaller sided games. Instead of just telling a player turn left or turn right at this code. Yes, those stuff may help agility, um, but agility I feel like is trained the best way when putting players in situations where the pitch is smaller, there's more players, and maybe even sometimes putting players in 1v1 situations, both for the attacker's agility and the defender's agility.
So I heard you mentioning stimulus. I want you, like, maybe can you just maybe try to educate about which when a player accelerate and a player decelerate, which major muscles are in work at work?
Acceleration, it's acceleration and deceleration, both hamstring. Deceleration maybe puts a lot of load on the quads, but also on the hamstrings. Like you'll see, even if you look at some hamstring injuries, they happen during the deceleration phase, and then for others also they happen during the acceleration phase. But in order for the hamstrings to adapt to that type of load, um, they have to be given a stimulus. I usually in season I usually prescribe like microdosing, like a minimum effective dose, like not too much but not too little at the same time. Obviously to reduce the risk of injury. So yeah, deceleration, acceleration. Your main muscles that would be working is your quads and your hamstrings, but hamstrings more than quads.
So how do you accumulate the micro dose? Do you accumulate it at the gym or in the pitch?
Aha. You know, in sports science, they speak about this. It's called the SID principle, specific adaptations to impose demand. So, obviously, specificity becomes important. When I say specificity, I'm meaning football actions can only improve when you do football actions. There's no gym exercise that's going to improve
True, true.
how well you change direction, how well you make decisions, you know. You only get better at passing when you're exposed to more passing. Maybe like an eccentric leg extension can help the quad handle the load of deceleration. Um, Maybe a Nordic can help the hamstring handle the load of deceleration, but deceleration and acceleration in these small-sided situations actually is more specific. It's more what a player would go through than what they would in the gym.
Yeah, you just mentioned a very good point there, because I've even had the former assistant coach of Jose Mourinho, Rui Ferreira, was saying like there's no specificity in the gym. You only do specific work in the pitch.
Yeah.
So,
Look, now,
okay, go ahead.
um, look, I agree, but I also disagree at the same time. Yes, the principle is specific adaptations to impose demands. There's no gym exercise that can improve football actions. But what I like about the gym is that it can improve how you express your skill. Like there's a lot of research. If you even look at sprinters, um, when they lift heavy weight, especially with regards to squats, um, they tend to jump higher and sprint faster. You know, but then again, also you can only sprint faster if you actually sprint. Um, so that's just speaking about physical capabilities of players, but improving the football side, you can only improve that in playing football.
True, true. So now I just want to, let's say, can you just maybe mention the phases of recovery, like players from maybe have already done, maybe they diagnosed an injury from a player. Can you just maybe touch on the phases of rehabilitation?
Okay, this one's a bit deep because um, two players can have the same injury, but the treatment might not be the same. And also, it boils down to understanding the body's wound healing process. So the first, let me put it 5 days. In the textbook, it says 3 days. But the first 3 to 5 days is the inflammation phase. So that's when the body, when it starts swelling and it's painful and there's inflammation. So that's when you don't want to really do anything because the body's doing its part. And then from 5 days onwards, I think 5 to 21 days, it becomes the proliferation phase. That's when the body starts rebuilding the muscle or the tendon that got hurt, and that's usually where the rehab starts. So from maybe day 3 up to maybe even day 21, the player would still be maybe with physio managing pain and inflammation. So that would be phase 1 and 2. And then moving into the final phase, they call it proliferation phase. That's when the body is almost completely um, healing or healed the muscle or whatever was injured. So that's when maybe the rehab is becoming more intense. But obviously, when you're working with athletes, um, their recovery from injury would be more quicker or easier compared to someone that doesn't play sport. So maybe even, let's say, 8 days after a hamstring injury, maybe a grade 2 hamstring injury, they could already be starting with loading for rehab while seeing the physio in conjunction. So it differs from player to player.
So, like let's say maybe a player is maybe hamstring grade 2. How many days will he be out for?
Boom. Okay. From my experience, roughly 4 to 6 weeks, a month and a half. But then again, it depends also from player to player. Because I recently had another player with a grade, they call it a grade 0, so it's a fascial strain. So the fascia is the part of the muscle that holds big muscles together. Um, and he's took a little bit longer than what I predicted. I thought that it would be 10 days. Usually it is 10 days, sometimes even 5. But a grade 2, 4 to 6 weeks, because then also you have to sort of dose high-speed runs and sprinting. How you introduce running to players with grade 2, even grade 3 hamstring has to be done carefully, and you have to consider which phase of healing the body is in at that time. So even there, when you start doing field rehab, you have to manage individually first, manage the players running load and sprinting load. That's apart from training with the team. And then you put them in what we call a worst case scenario type field rehab, where, for example, in a game, it's a attacking transition. So the player has to now cover distance, sprint distance, and high speed run distance. And then in less than 10 seconds, now it's a defensive transition. Um, Now they have to run back again. So the hamstring doesn't have time to recover. And then from there, you see how the player handles it. And then if you put them through worst case scenario, most likely they can almost start full training. But like I said, it depends from player to player. Sometimes if a player is scared, like from my experience, when players are scared of an injury because they previously had it, the chance of them getting injured is a little bit higher. So if someone is scared of sprinting because they hurt their hamstring during sprinting, the chance of them getting injured again on that same hamstring during sprinting is higher.
Because they're still injured in their brain.
Yeah, and usually when you're doing the field rehab with them, you'd ask them maybe to do a 95% maximum sprint, but you can even see by the running mechanics that they're not running at 95%. They're still running with fear. And usually I take that player outside and say, look, if you're scared, you're gonna get injured again. And I'll also tell them that I'm on their side. I wouldn't cause an injury. So, like for me, sprinting is probably one of the best ways to strengthen the hamstring, and at the same time to improve player sprint performance. Like I'm a big fan of Nordics. I'm a big fan of Roman deadlifts. Um, but sprinting is one of the best ways to actually strengthen the hamstring, but at the same time also improve a player's speed.
Yeah, because you mentioned when you said when a player he has, because I saw even in the PSL, there's a player recently that he torn his ACL, his left ACL, and now he's even torn his right ACL. So he said like when the player he has had a injury before, he's scared of being re-injured. So I think maybe that is psychology. Like how do you as a biokinetics stimulate the player's mentality in that instant?
So what I did before I was in football, so I have a battery of tests that I put players through. So it's obviously the Cybex or the Biodex machine, that's isokinetics. So I'd obviously do that every 6 weeks. Then there's the different op tests, obviously, to see how the knee handles load, because from my experience, I can also see when a player is scared to put load in the knee. And then there's another test I do is a psychological test. So I give a player a paper. He has to, I won't tell him how much he has to score, so he'll have to be honest on this paper. And then there's a certain mark you have to get out of 100 for me to say, okay, this player is psychologically ready. But then also a good way to see if a player is psychologically ready is to put him in scenarios where he's likely to get injured. I remember this one player had a meniscus, and he already started playing. So he got into a collision, and then he was laying on the floor for probably like 2 3 minutes, and everyone was panicking. So I said, no, he's fine. I actually wanted this tackle to happen so that he knows that his knee is ready. So sometimes it's about letting a player face his fear to understand that he's fully recovered.
So now, Hans, I know the fixer, you are a hybrid, you're a bio and also a fitness coach. So now I just want us to, yes, now we are speaking about medical, we are speaking about injury. So now I just want us to move a bit to tactical and technical, but what also affects the physiological part of the game. So now where we're speaking about, because me, like, I don't know, maybe if I'm starting to be corrected, you find a team training in a match day -1. They don't even check the load and everything. They still not aware of like what they're doing in the match day -1 is what they also did in match day -4, -3. So what's the adequate load during match day -1 or match day -2?
Obviously, your match day -1 is your priming day. So you want a short but intense session. Some coaches would do like rondos. You do a quick warm up rondos and then maybe a counter press type rondo, and then some will do like 11v11 tactical with set pieces. So that obviously means there's going to be a lot of stoppages. So it's also going to make sure that players aren't running much. So usually, I'd say a total distance of 3.5, maybe 3,500 meter, 3.8. And then there you want your sprint distance and your high speed run distance, probably like 10% of what they would get in a match, so that they're fully recovered. So you don't want the same load. Match day -4 would usually be like your conditioning load -4 and -3, because you also need to understand the physiology of neuromuscular load, which happens like in the hamstring when you're exposed to a lot of sprinting and high intensity distance. So now, if you're doing a high load on a match day -1, you're risking your players of getting injuries, but also poor performance due to fatigue.
So what's the best way to reduce fatigue?
I wouldn't say you'll reduce fatigue per se, because you can't always. Some clubs, like these European clubs, monitor players' sleeping patterns, and they monitor nutrition. But obviously, leading closer to the game, you want less time spent on the pitch. So maybe a match day -2, maybe 60 to 70 minutes. Obviously, keeping in mind the high-speed run. For some, especially these English clubs, match day -2 is your speed days. So they're exposed to a lot of sprinting. And then match day -1 is your priming days. So there's a lot of acceleration and reaction, and maybe smaller sided games, like maybe a 5v5 or 5v5 plus 5. So fatigue, it depends on players sleeping, and also how you manage the player load leading up to the game. Like -4, -3, that you can load. Let's say you go high -4, -5. No, let's say you go a high load -4. When I'm saying high load, I'm speaking about total distance. I'm speaking about sprinting and high speed run. Let's say you go high load and then -3 you go a little bit low, but it's also high load, and then -2 you decrease a lot, -1 almost no sprinting, because you would have already done that on -4 and -3. So they already, when you taper down -2 and -1, the fatigue would be better. They'd be more recovered by -2. In fact, -1, they would even be completely fresh if you did conditioning on -4.
Yeah, so like I'm just gonna be maybe I don't know, but I find like or maybe I watch maybe even like I think it's a worldwide thing whereby you find match day warm up. You find fitness coaches pulling players with resistant bands. What's your view on that?
I've been reading stuff on that. Like for some, they use it as priming, but maybe not in the right way. Um, and some players, maybe from their personal training guys, whatever, have this view that your glutes are switched off, so they have to use bands. But a muscle can't be switched off, because if your glutes are switched off, then you'd be walking like a model. But also for some, it's like a placebo. Like they feel it's almost like a ritual. Like if they don't do band activation, then they'll believe that they're gonna play shit. So you just leave players to do their thing. Like I do it also. I'll do like my dynamic stretches, and then I'll use the bands. Obviously, for players' ease of mind or peace of mind, for lack of a better word. But it also comes from how people train these track and field athletes. Like there's something called post-activation potentiation. Um, so you'll maybe lift a heavy load, 3 reps, very heavy, like a squat, and then you go and lift a little bit lighter load, maybe 5 reps, and then you go and do 3, 4 hurdle jumps, and then the next thing you do, like you take those 2 power bands, you do like 20 or 10 jumps, band assisted jumps, and then from research it proves that it improves like your vertical jump and your forward or broad jump. So I think that's where it stems from. But obviously, in a football setting, you wouldn't be doing stuff like that on a match day -1.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you mentioned a very pivotal point when you said it's a ritual, it's a cult. Because even me, I was once in a team whereby if the player didn't do bend, they felt like as if they are not their blood is not flowing.
Yeah,
So in this instant, like we get the team is in a situation whereby in this tight schedule, you know, the fixer whereby uh, some players that are not really exposed to enough load. Maybe they play less minutes. So in this instead of playing two times and like every 2 days or 3 days, how do you help the players that don't play plus 60 minutes to be at the
that's
same level or the same fatigue with the other players?
that one's a bit difficult. So some would do top up runs. Um, I remember I saw your post on LinkedIn speaking about top up runs, but that's nothing to do with football. It's just to make sure that players are getting the same stimulus that you get from a football match. You know, like your sprint distance, your high speed run distance, your total distance. Like sometimes you do top up runs after the match with these players, um, depending on whether the stadium management would allow you to use the field to do top up, or sometimes on match day +1 when in the periodization plan there's maybe a recovery day for players that have played. You'll use match day +1 as a conditioning day for the players that played less than 60. Obviously, the technical team I work with, they do nothing without the football, nothing at all without the football. So let's say we played yesterday, then players that played less than 60 would probably, so there'll be recovery for the other players. They'll do like maybe mobility, rondo, warm up, no SAQ, then they'll do stretching and maybe ice baths, see the physio. Then the others would do like football conditioning, like maybe a 3v3, 4v4 underload or overload, depending when the next match is. If we're playing every 3 days, then it would probably be a underload 3v3, 4v4. Or else, if we're not gonna do a match day plus one recovery, then I would do top ups in the pitch. So I'd expose them to zone fours that's running at speeds between 17 to 21, and I'll expose them to zone fives, not 17 to 21, 17 to 23, and then I'll do zone fives that's almost sprinting, so 24 to maximum speed, just to get that match stimulus.
So now, because you find out, okay, maybe some teams, I remember during the time of Peace of Musimane Sundowns, maybe because you mentioned that maybe some stadium management, they didn't allow the team to train. You'll find that they train immediately after the game. If they're playing at home, even everyone is there and they know immediately after the game is a training. Because even Pirates, I saw even recently in the PSL, Pirates, they've done, they're playing against, but they're playing away also. If after the match they ran a session where maybe I think it was a positional play or something. So in that instant, from I know like you've been working with GPS load in possession and positional play. Which one does does stimulate maybe acceleration, deceleration, and total distance?
Okay, that's obviously now becoming more player specific and positional specific. Um, Maybe positional play more, but it's easier for some clubs if they have more players. Like I know Pirates. One time they played a match. I don't know, and Swallows wasn't playing, and we went to play a friendly game on match day with players that didn't play. So some clubs have the depth to or the amount of players to do friendlies on match day, and then for others match day plus one. But when the squad is small, to be able to load players that didn't play is a, like to organize a friendly for them is a bit difficult. Like let's say uh, 6, 7 players didn't play. Now it becomes difficult, to get a friendly. The only other alternative is for them to play maybe in a TDC match, or to play in a friendly with the younger players. Or else, what we will do is just like if 7 players didn't play, we'll do like a 5v5 underload or overload, depending when the next game is, and then maybe on that day we'll do EPEs or shuttles, just to get in that high-speed run and sprint stimulus.
There's this myth that maybe made like in this congested period whereby maybe coaches they talk about lactic acid. So for me personally, I think maybe I also stand to be corrected. I don't agree with what they say about lactic acid, that lactic acid causes fatigue and all those kind of stuff. So in this instance, my question directly is like, maybe can you please touch on lactic acid, and energy systems, just to try to educate the young and upcoming coaches, or even the coaches that they are there already.
Okay, um, lactate is a byproduct of ATP PC. So different energy systems load, or different training loads different energy systems. So the first system is obviously the phosphagen system. That's like your sprints, your long jumps, your powerful type stuff. Then the next one is like maybe your 800-meter runs, your 1,500-meter runs. I'm just using Olympics as an example. Those will become like your glycolysis system, and then after that it becomes oxidative system. So when these ATP PC products break up. So ATP-PC will become ADP, and then it will become pyruvate, and then it will become lactate. Um, and then the lactate is almost a source again for ATP to be reproduced. Obviously, depending on uh, how much glucose you've been consuming leading up to, or how much carbs you've been consuming leading up to training and the match. But lactate is a good indicator of whether a player is fully recovered or not. Obviously, during high intensity matches and training, lactate buildup would be quicker. So meaning you'd fatigue quicker. But some coaches obviously don't want to hear sports science language. So, so you'd see lactate buildup by how long they take to recover. As I've said before, fitter players recover quicker than unfit players. And then you'd also see the quality of football actions would go down, like maybe pressing, for example, a passing action, a shooting action, sometimes even decision making. I don't know if I
So
answered your question.
yeah, definitely. Because I think I asked this because I think it's a very big factor. Because maybe Henry said maybe if you work with a head coach that is reluctant when it comes to maybe mentioning the sports science. But yeah, I think maybe we just have to try to speak a football language with them. To hence you said like you see the football actions, the quality of the football actions is they're reducing. So that's where you start to notice that no, they accumulating something that is you shouldn't be accumulating. So, but yeah, the fixer, thank you for your time, and thank you for your time. And no, I hope you're enjoying your time there in Morocco. So, where can the viewer interact with you on your socials?
I just have one Instagram account, Durell Butler bio underscore name the fixer. So yeah, but also on your point, I know we're done. I just what I learned also, especially working with Coach Fadlu. Um, so I read this book, Football Conditioning or Football Periodization by Raymond Fine. Very good book. Obviously, um, I'm also intellectual. I'm not saying that like to brag or anything, but I also question people's ideas and do my own research. So he speaks about football. Yes, science is in everything, but sports science came to football and not football to sports science. So the way he explains it is like if you move from South Africa to Morocco, it is not for Morocco to learn English or Zulu, it is for the South African to learn French or Arabic. So it is for sports science to learn football language and not for coaches to learn sports science. So what helps me is also I played football before. Um, so uh, when I speak to the coaches, I rarely speak about sports science type stuff. If I'm speaking about recovery, maybe I would. If I'm speaking about nutrition, um, but I'll usually quality of football actions are going down, recovery between actions are going down. So sometimes that also informs like different sized games, trains different stuff. Like if you want more football actions, you do more smaller sided game. So you'll say to the coach, um, the players are struggling to do more football action. So that means now we have to prescribe smaller sided games because if you're playing 11v11, it's less football actions. It's maybe a pass and a move here. And then if we lose the ball, we press. But if it's smaller sided games, the dimensions are small. You pass, you have to move immediately. So when you're speaking about fitness, also, it's quality of action, amount of football actions, and yeah.
Yeah, you've summed it up there, the fixer. You've summed it up there. I don't wanna mess it up. You've said it well. You've said it well when you mentioned about the small sided games, medium sided games, and also the large sided games. Because some one thing that some coaches they don't understand the field dimension. That the field dimension also plays a role. In a 30 times 40, you don't find the same stimulus that you get into 60 times 70.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
but yeah, go on.
Yeah, so like the coach here is very particular with his dimensions, especially with rondos, um, especially with small-sided games. But sometimes he can even make the pitch smaller or larger depending on the quality of players. Like if players are struggling in a 5v2 rondo, maybe makes the rondo a little bit bigger so you have more time and space on the ball to make a decision. But if the quality of players are good, like a Barcelona, technical quality, then it maybe make a 5v2, 7x9 rondo. Whereas if you're maybe doing it with under 14s, you'd probably do it 14x14, 5v2. So he's very good. Both coaches are very good with understanding how to manipulate dimensions of the field based on how many players are in the field. So, yeah.
Because I think like even me, like I'm a fan. I'm a fan of rondo because it works. It works also in your brain, in your both hemisphere, right hemisphere, and your left hemisphere, because you have to think quick and make decisions quick.
Yeah, but it boils down to what you posted on LinkedIn the one time about what's this thing? Visualization.
Yeah, perception couplings.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, the best way to help players make quicker decisions is to let them play their sport. Because the chance of seeing a similar situation you saw in training is higher in a match, and then you can make a quick decision based on what's happening in front of you because maybe you've seen something similar during training. Because like now, when I watch matches, I see rondos in a match. If it's a build-up play, 5v2, including the goalkeeper, maybe a 5v3. It's two strikers and maybe a number 8, and then we maybe have a goalkeeper, two centre backs, right back, left back, and two sixers. So now it becomes almost like a 7v3. Maybe the dimensions is a little bit bigger, but then if you look at maybe if players are in a half space, maybe it's a right back, a number 10, and a number 6, and maybe um, when we play the ball on the right, we pull out maybe a left back. Now it becomes almost a 3v2 situation, which is also a type of rondo. When you know football is a game of numbers, when you can pull players out of position so that your attacking players have more space, to do their thing and create chances. So the way I view rondos now is different. It's not just something. Yes, it's fun for players, but it also improves their decision making, their quality of action. How quickly they do their actions, how quickly they recover between football actions.
I definitely agree with you, the fixer, because even when the last game between Liverpool and Chelsea, there were a lot of boxes there. There were a lot of rondo. There were a lot of even the goal. Even the goal you can see in the build-up. It was about it was 4v2. Chelsea they putting Liverpool in your box, whereby it was 4v2, and that led into a goal. So if you watch Barcelona, you watch Chelsea, you watch PSG, you see a lot of boxes, you see a lot of rondos. So even me, like when I grew up in the game, I grow in the game, I start to see that rondo is it stimulates the game. What happens in the rondo also happens in the game.
Even in your small-sided game, same thing. Like you'll even see some of these clubs, like your Man City and in Barcelona, when they're in possession, they push their defense line up and their midfield line up, and almost all their players, if not all, are in the half of the opponent. So that makes the space smaller for the opponent to play through if there is a transition. So that's where technical quality becomes important.
Yeah, thank you, the fixer. We just ran out of time, but yeah, definitely we will maybe have a part 2 of this because I see now it's getting deep.
Okay, no problem, champ. Thank
Cheers,
you.
player.